Okay, before we install the weapon system, we're going to go ahead and install the self-rider. So again, we made sure at the start that we could get the first and third holes visible through the self-rider. So when we push this back on there, we can see again that I can see light through the first and third. Because the link will be, and there's a smooth side of the link, that'll go on the smooth side of the self-rider. Because that's on the right side, we're going to go through the right side and the lower hole. We will be using some of the standard Turnabout hardware. So you'll have a baggie like this in your kit, and in here the primary screws. This is 20 pieces of M2x6 self-tapping. Separately in here are your larger, there's 6 M2.5. So these are only to be used if you've stripped one of the holes in the chassis. Then you can run those in, and they'll bite. You won't have to change out the chassis or the part quite as soon. And then there's the 2 silver machine screws. So actually, Squeezy doesn't use a silver machine screw. It only uses the ones that were originally in the Squeezy kit, including the M3x12 that went in there, and the 4 M3x14s that are up there. And we also use the M3x6. That is actually what gives us a downstop. So you can see where that'll poke through. So that goes in here, and you can adjust the angle of the arms, the minimum down angle, by adjusting that screw right there. So we can put that one in next, but we're in the middle of this, so we'll go ahead and get this one. So with our bag of the self-tapping M2x6s, we'll go ahead and dump a couple of those out right here. Those will also be used for the armor. This is another step that it's nice to have. Actually, this is where the red-handled driver is pretty ideal. So that'll go on there. And again, the right side, we want to go into that bottom hole, because we're going to give it as much room as we can for the link to pivot on. So this one will run in there. I'm keeping my finger over the far side to make sure that those threads bite onto the far side of the self-rider. And that snugs up nice and tight. And I'll load the next one. So this one is what goes through that top hole in the self-rider. Go. And what we had been trying to avoid with our finger on that bottom one was letting that side get away. So I'm gonna keep that tight again and rerun that bottom screw. So what we're going for is making sure that the self-riding piece is tight against that red servo horn. It's a little bit easier to see with the blue, but you can see the blue is tight on both sides against the servo horn. So with that in place, then we can go ahead and put the short fat one, the M3x6. We'll put this on that driver. And you'll notice the theme that it's often easier to put hardware in when we can hold the component in our hand instead of being already installed onto the bot. So a little bit of support material. Grab the Phillips and just kind of clean the entrance of that hole up a little bit. And that should help this screw get started on that hole. It's kind of funny. This one is not normally a problem. There we go. So one of the fun things about these kits is you learn all the little techniques of making things actually work in the real world. When you 3D print stuff, often you have to clean up the holes just a little bit. So we're going to get that to the point where it shows through just a smidge, and then we can fine tune it later. So there's our weapon assembly, and our self-rider is installed. So let's go ahead and start putting this together. So you can see how the shoulder will go into the mount right there, and then the aluminum rod will go through the side.